everyone. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
Welcome, welcome. It's great to see you all here. As always, welcome to XR Women Wednesday.
Woohoo!
Yeah. So I want to start out by thanking our sponsors. First and foremost, of course, the Immersive Learning Research Network, because we are here on their campus and they have been allowing us to use XR Women Hall for more than 2 years now. It's a beautiful space. It's our home and we love it. And it's been, really great to have this place to come back to. We also have, of course, our XR Women Museum in Frame, and Jenna Lambert has done an incredible job on curating that space. And so we're grateful to Frame for letting us host it there. They've given us some extras there, and so both of these are connected through Verbella. The iLearn campus is on the Verbella platform. It is, and Frame is owned by Verbella. So, that's sort of the connecting point, and they've been good allies for us as well. So we're grateful to them. We're really thrilled today to have a fireside chat between Maryann Morrow and Caroline Dennis on raising capital. We all need to raise money, don't we? Yeah. I'm just
Yeah.
realizing yes, we do. I'm just realizing that some of our colleagues might still be on the landing pad. Caroline or Jenna, would one of you mind sending a message over telling them that we've already started?
Sure, no problem.
Okay, thanks. Okay, right. So this will be our third annual XR Women Awards. Hard to believe. We're in our third year. And this year we're going to be presenting them on the main stage at the Augmented World Expo, the premier industry event. And we're super, super excited about that. And we really want a show of force of all the women in the industry. We want everybody, all the women to be there and for them to celebrate both our past award winners and this year award winners in the categories of real world impact, trailblazer, and innovation. The nomination period has closed. So one thing I want to say about this is that we thought we were going to be on the program, but apparently we are a community event for AWE, so we won't be on the program, but they are supporting us and helping us. So we will really need to rally everyone to be there at that time at 11 a.m. on Thursday, June 1st. Not that far away now since it's almost May 1st, but anyway, super excited about that. Okay, so apart from our guest speaker, Maryann, I don't think we have anyone new here today. Oh, and I see Juliana Lowe is here. Yay, another one of our longtime friends and community members. That's great. So I'm going to skip past this. We'll get introduced to Maryann. Okay. iLearn's going to be doing a major platform update later today. This means before next Wednesday, you need to log in and do the patch. There's a box you can click that says something about the patches. I can't remember the exact language, but do that well before trying to come in here next week. They have new avatars, a speech to text function, and other new features and bug fixes. They say to sign out and then sign back in to make sure that you are accessing the latest version. So do allow extra time before next week, maybe even do that tomorrow, so you won't have to worry about it next Wednesday. The VRARA today is the education forum, and I am speaking there on a panel later this afternoon. I believe it is at 2:25 or 2:30, 2:35 maybe, along with Colleen Bielitz, Dishwana Bagley, and Carly Brady. Julie Smithson will be taking part in the Aurora Enterprise Forum. And Jenna, are you or anyone else from our group participating in the Healthcare Forum? Okay, okay. Anyway, just some upcoming events.
And Karen, is that at 2:30 Eastern Standard, or which time
It's,
zone?
it's 2:30 Eastern Daylight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So I've started just saying Eastern Time and leaving out the Standard and Daylight because it gets
I know.
confusing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. There's also iLearn is having their own conference, and it's split into two different time periods. The May 18th to 18th through 20th, it's online. And so we'll be here on the campus, and that is the practitioners version of the campus. I've asked Paula McDowell to come in and say a bit more about this. So I hope she will in the next week or two to let us know a little more what's going on and how you can participate. And then there is an in-person conference June 26th through 29 in San Luis Obispo. That's a much more academic research focused conference. But iLearn does some great work. If you're not a member, join. You can join for free. Still do it now because it won't always be free. Okay, there's also this is going to be October, the Immersion Forum with XR for Europe, and they've got a call for speakers open right now. So check it out, submit something. We love to have members of our community presenting anywhere and everywhere. The Reality Innovators Network, Sophia is heavily enjoined with that. It's a big group, way to stay on top of a lot of things going on in the industry. So look for their group on LinkedIn, and they do networking events. They used to do them in AltSpace. I'm not sure where they are holding them these days. So here's another rundown of some of the upcoming events. There is AWE May 31st to June 2nd, Collision in Toronto, and Event Tech Live in late June and in November. Helen Irwin hosts the Four Mothers Cafe Community Discussion Forum, and it's so cool to go into the Four Mothers Cafe, which is a space from her novel Sour Milk and Sheep's Wool, and she's been holding events there in VR that are related to women's life issues. So this one is about how love makes a family and the many ways that family is made. And so that is going to be May 2nd at 7 p.m. Eastern, and that will be in the Four Mothers Cafe in Spatial.
Thank you, Karen.
Of course, Helen. I think it's just amazing that you're holding that series, and it's so appropriate, that location and the themes that your novel deals with. Yeah,
Thank you.
and such a beautiful space created by Cause and Christie. Really, really gorgeous. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about AI and trying to stay on top of developments there. Everything's changing so quickly that sharing knowledge and discussing amongst ourselves will help us understand these developments. And we're going to fall behind very quickly if we don't do that. We have a channel. In our Slack channel, we have a channel called Learning About AI that you can join and participate in some discussion there. And I don't know if anyone, Julie, I know you really worked on putting these slides together. Do you want to speak to them, or?
You're talking like I know what I'm doing. Sure. Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Hey, just a second. Actually, I have to come up to the stage and get rid of these silly blue boxes. So I can read the screen too. Morning, everyone. Okay, so yeah, I captured this because I thought, oh my gosh, there's so much kind of going on with this, and I've just put a bunch of resources here, numerous AI, they all do different things. And here's the next one. Maybe take a screen capture as we go through them. Stylized, browse AI, they all kind of do different things. And I'm going to add these slides into the channel. In XR Women, we've got the learning about AI, so we can, move on from there. But I just, adding resources to what we've got. So anyways, thanks everyone for coming today. I'll pass it back to you, Karen.
Okay, great. Thanks, Julie. Yeah, and thank you for curating this material. And just a reminder that you can go to the top of your screen and use screen zoom if you want to see these closer up. And as Julie suggested, take a screen grab. Yeah, there's also a control over the top of the screen on the stage if you want to use that. Okay, here's something that Julie and I have been working on for a long time and very, very intensely, the Starburst Juicyverse, which is a fun experience. And you can earn a coupon if you play a game that's in the experience for 50 cents off Starburst. But it's also just fun to go in there and play around, and you can actually build things in the studio. So you can just go to starburst.com, find a way to enter there, check it out, and please give us your feedback. We'd be interested to hear what the experience is like for you, what you encounter there, and share. You can take a photo in a photo booth. There are some fun things to play around with in there. So I hope you enjoy it. It's a pretty incredible web-based project. So do check it out and let us know what you think. We're congratulating Kathy Hackle on being featured in Grazia on the future of fashion in the metaverse. And what a great photo, incredible dress. Yeah, Kathy Hackle leading so many discussions and things that are going on in this space. Okay, next week we will have Rahel DeMont talking about XR Career Pathways. She's one of the co-founders of XR Bootcamp, and she's been doing that for several years now. And I think this is really important for us, although some of us are quite deeply embedded, but also as we share with others and start thinking about how our industry grows and the many different kinds of roles there are in it. Not everyone's a developer who works in this space. There are plenty of other roles that are important to the success of particular experiences and platforms and activations. So it takes many people with many different skills and talents. May 10th, we will have Sasha on VR, who will talk about leveraging VR for skills development and opportunities. We all want to do that, don't we? Yeah, looking forward to it. And then on May 17th, we're going to have a day to connect. We do connect informally here, but this is going to be a little more dedicated time to that. It's always good, we do these presentations, but to have a little more time to really talk to one another and get to know what it is that we do, and maybe form some new collaborations, find some new colleagues, maybe launch a venture, launch something, get something started here. So that should be great. Okay. Now we are ready for the main event. I'm going to turn it over to Caroline, and I'm going to then get into my seat and listen to what Caroline and Maryann have to say. And thank you so much for joining us, Maryann.
Yay. Thank you, Karen. All right. Yay, I'm so glad everybody's here today. For those of you who don't know me, in terms of my life in the blockchain space, I have known Maryann since really 2019. So I'm really excited that she's finally here to talk to us about raising capital, what it means, and just sharing her experiences with that. So before we dig in, let me just start. This is a quote by Mike Swede. He's an entrepreneur and digital strategist about Maryann. Maryann Morrow is a leader for the new technology age. Key learnings: be bold, be responsive, never accept no, and get shit done. Maryann is an unforgiving badass, which I love that. I love that part. So I was saying that we met in 2019, and I was advising a student blockchain education startup at that time, and we met at a event for the Boston Blockchain Association. I was on the board, and she came up to me because there were, as usual, right, so many more men than women. And we just started getting into it about, I was trying to facilitate more women to be in this educational startup space so that we could get more students to come her way. She shared a little bit about the work she's been doing for so long. You know, Maryann has been in the financial marketing and advertising space for about 25 years. She is the board chair and lead CEO for Ninth Gear, where she leads corporate strategy, scaling, and investor relations. She is a capital market specialist. She's launched a family of mutual funds and architecting a fee-based asset management platform for banks, broker-dealers, and insurance firms. She actually also founded an accelerator called Surge XR. This was a boutique accelerator that was focused on faster plans for monetization. She's had 2 successful exits, Standard & Poor's being one of them, and has consulted on content advertising for a lot of firms while working on Wall Street. She's an active angel investor, expert on digital ledger technology, ICOs, initial coin offerings, and crypto. Her education is none other than Cornell for material science engineering, at Lemoyne for finance, and Whittier Law School. And she's also constantly learning from places like Stanford on scaling blockchain, on valuation modeling, and angel investing. So I'm really thrilled that you're here, Maryann. You know that we've been talking about doing this for so many months. So I'd love to turn the stage over to you, and you can take it away and just tell me when you'd like me to advance the slide. Yay!
Thank you so much, Caroline, for inviting me to
Yay.
participate. I'm just so pleased to be here today and to present in the metaverse. I've never done this before, and usually I can, drive and talk and all those things. So I appreciate you being my Vanna White today on this brilliant platform. I'm presenting from Silicon Valley, which used to be a pretty good word until the SVB collapse and everybody's like, oh, Silicon Valley. But I'm just happy to be out here in the sunshine. I reside in San Mateo, California, which is directly across the street from Franklin Templeton. And it's just such a delight to speak to an audience of technically savvy XR women.
Yay!
Yes. So I focus on the arcane area of capital markets called foreign exchange, or FX. I'm not going to get too deep in the weeds on that, but we've been hearing the term digital transformation buzzing around for a really long time. And after years of focus groups, whiteboarding, pontification, which a lot of old white men do all the time, we're just living in this new paradigm where digital transformation has gone from a nice to have to becoming a necessity for the survival of financial institutions, because a lot of them are going away like dinosaurs, and we're a key component for digital transformation. So what I do is power instant settlement in capital markets and converting things like euros to US dollars to yen. And I've taken a process that typically takes 48 hours on a good day. You don't think about that when you just Venmo people and that you can hear the ka-ching, within seconds. But behind the scenes, it takes a really long time to move dollars to euros to yen. There's 180 currencies on the planet, and we've condensed that into seconds. And We are a fintech SaaS company and do use a bit of blockchain or distributed ledger technology in our tech stack. Next slide. So I love shoes. And it's really kind of funny because as we look at these things, they're shoes. And I kind of think about being a stiletto in a room full of flats. But during the pandemic, I started to wear my Uggs. And now my bath tub is just full of all of my stilettos because they just don't fit anymore. I think my foot just totally, transmogrified into something different. But I still love my shoes. I love looking at them. But why are we here today? I'm going to tell you about the slimy underbelly of what it's really like for a woman to start a company and raise money. We've raised almost 6 million. We're at 5.75 million. And it has been a battle. I've always been the single female in the room. I'm comfortable in doing that. And I was on the math team in high school, totally geeked out. I was the only female in honors physics at Cornell. And there was always the TA that came up to me. It was like, are you keeping up when all the guys are watching my lab experiments? I was the only female executive in companies. I was paid less than men. Let's not forget that women still, receive 82% of all the fund, not the funding, but all of the pay that goes to women. There's still a huge gap. And I've demanded equal pay. I've done more with less. I've always volunteered for the impossible projects that no one else was willing to do. But I have never experienced such outright discrimination as when I've gone out to raise money. I have sat down across from the dude in the puffy vest with a collared shirt and jeans, which is the uniform for white men in Silicon Valley. And they don't look at me. I'm invisible. They don't ask me questions. I just don't exist. Next slide, please. My friend Nisa wrote this book, and it's great. And it talks about women entrepreneurs. The entire VC ecosystem is broken. I posted something out on LinkedIn this morning about it. And about this woman that was presenting or who was on a board, and she just has incredible harassment and just treated very differently than the men. We need to do something about it. The industry in VC is staggeringly homogeneous and operates on pattern matching. So how can they give billions of dollars to Sam Bankman-Fried, SBF, without any due diligence? There was really no due diligence that was done. And what supports the writing of a single $350 million check, which Andreessen Horowitz did last year, to Adam Neumann? Adam Neumann single-handedly torpedoed WeWork's IPO. And yet again, he lives to tell another day and gets funded yet again. It makes me just incredibly disgusted. Harvard Business Review did a study in 2017, and they found that male entrepreneurs are asked radically different questions, which affects how much funding they receive. Men are asked promotion questions about hopes, achievements, advancement, and ideals, and women receive the prevention questions, the safety questions, questions about responsibility, security, and vigilance. I've personally been asked, what do you know about selling into a bank? And I was the only female in the room of 20 VCs sitting in the middle of Silicon Valley in front of Angels Forum. And I was asked that question, like, what could you possibly know about selling into a bank? Well, have you looked at my curriculum vitae? I know a lot about selling into a bank. And also asked, what do you know? How could you possibly be doing this? So we just are treated in a very different way. Next slide, please. Why in 2023 are we still admiring the problem? It's 2023. We're still talking about gender equality. Why? The undeniable truth is that gender inequality still exists across all industries, and it's only getting worse. It's not getting better. Compared to 2019, women in the C-suite went from 12% to 9%, and women on executive boards are down from 9% to 7%. And these are positions where decisions are made. So what does that say about our progress if women are vastly underrepresented in these rooms? Women receive less than 2% of all funding. Let me say that for people that are sitting in the back row today. It's less than 2%, people, I just throw up in my mouth every time I say those words. Next slide, please. And it's getting worse. And yet women perform better. So this lovely little nugget came to me earlier this year, and women do vastly better than men. Over 100% more ROI when a woman is in the C-suite. And this is at all levels. This is in Fortune 500 companies. So for those of you that can't, read the fine print here, 384% from female-led companies versus 261% from male-led companies. It's undeniable. But yet we receive the scraps. Next slide, please. So how do we combat it? One of the things is, like, raise your hand, be heard. Don't let men interrupt you. Don't let men take credit for your ideas. How many times have you been in a room, you said something, they glossed over it, and then the same thing was said by one of your male colleagues, and everybody's like, oh, that's a really good idea. Stop shrinking to fit in places you've already outgrown. These slides are going to go a little quicker now, Caroline, so be ready. So the next one, take the lead, do the work, volunteer for those really tough assignments. I always was the person that was like, hey, give this to me, I'll take care of it. People saying, oh, it can't be done. And I'm like, those are those magic words. I'm like, yeah, let me show you. Next, we need male allyship. We need it so incredibly much because, next slide, women have big butts. And that is not something that has two T's on it, it has one T. And the reason why is when you're not in the room, you need men to speak up on your behalf. Caroline, you're great, but I'll say that to your face. Outside the room, when you're not there, Caroline is great, but blah, blah, blah. You need somebody in the room, most of the time it's guys because they're in those rooms, to say, Caroline is great and she deserves this promotion. Caroline is fantastic. She works so hard and she should receive more pay. You need the male allyship to make sure that when you're not in that room, you're still part of that conversation. Next slide. Stop doubting yourself. Women have mindset struggles. Being equal to a man, making more money than a man, making sure that their appearance is correct, right? I'm so happy to not have to get dressed up here and be on camera today. I just was like, yay, I can roll out of bed and be on this presentation. But most of the time I am on camera and you are focused on making sure that everything is perfect because appearance matters. Stop doubting yourself about stepping into your own power. Just stop it. Embrace your inner core strength. Next slide. So back to the VC game now. Don't think that lady money is what I call it with all the women VCs is any easier. It's so much tougher, especially in hard tech or frontier tech. When you're courageous and you're fearless and you speak out, don't expect everybody to stand up and cheer for you because they don't. The women don't have their pom-poms cheering you on. They're harder on you. Last year, maybe it was the year before, we were in front of Golden Seeds, and that's an angel group founded and supposedly focused on women. They asked us over 100 hours of due diligence. They went into every nook and every cranny, and they asked us questions that just weren't appropriate. And at the end of the day, we got a $12,500 check for 100 hours of due diligence. It was really a very, very bad experience. And it was more like a club where people wanted to get together and just chit chat, but they weren't as focused on investing. So don't fall into that trap. I've sent out incredible amounts of email targeting female VCs, and I've stopped because it just is so hard to get. They don't cheer you on. Next slide. Take your authentic self into everything you do. Women lead differently. Women see through another lens. And for many years on Wall Street, I pretended to be like the guys. I was tougher than the guys. It was as if I embraced the whole suit and I made sure that I was such a badass. You would not have liked me back when I was working on Wall Street. I appreciate leaving the pricks and the super pricks behind on Wall Street and leveraging my authentic self, which involves humor, which involves empathy, which involves compassion, but it still involves getting things done. And we need that. We need to do things differently and lead differently. Next slide. As conscious leaders, we have a significant opportunity sitting at the other end of statistics. Rather than looking at what's possible, let's look at what's possible. Speak out when there's a mantle. What's a mantle? It's one of those all-male panels, sausage factory of all men. Everyone can create change if you want to move the needle. I'm constantly asking, why is this an all-male panel? Always, always, always. Let's look at diversity and ensure that we have that seat. Everyone can create change, and if they want to move the needle. I don't do business with all male firms, and I've turned down VC conversations when I see all male teams. And just this past week, Yahoo listed and highlighted the top 10 marketers, and guess how many women there were on this? It was on LinkedIn. There was not a single female listed in Yahoo's 10 marketers. That's just garbage. Does anybody know who this woman is? I purposely left her name off the slide. Sarah, are you gonna, oh, Sarah said she was crying, but I was wondering if Sarah, if you have something that if you know who this woman is. Anybody know who this woman is?
We're about to.
I do. I know who Cindy Gallup is. Yep.
Excellent, excellent,
Yeah.
Karen. Let's talk about Cindy Gallup for a moment. She's such a bright spot in supporting women. I've learned so much from listening to her, especially about just building my own personal brand. It's why I started my own website, MaryannMorrow.com. If you have not seen her video on it, I encourage you to watch it today. Not next week, not tomorrow, today. Cindy holds the opposite view to Sheryl Sandberg. Sheryl wants us all to lean into the existing system. Fuck that lean in bullshit. Cindy wants us to redesign the system and for every woman to unashamedly set out to make an absolute goddamn fucking shit ton of money. Because when we make an absolute goddamn fucking shit ton of money, we can use that money to fund other women, to help other women, to support other women, to donate to other women, to do whatever we fucking want. And we need to build our own VC and business ecosystem because the white male one isn't working for us. We live in a world where the default setting is always male. We need to change that, and we need to change it immediately. So next slide, please. I was involved in this book. I was in the Valley. Someone reached out to me and said, hey, I'm writing this book about the intelligent investor Silicon Valley. And it's over 100 individuals who were interviewed. Caroline, I sent you the link if you can put this in here while I'm chatting. But
Sure.
Growing up on Wall Street and capital markets and institutional finance, I really lived on the East Coast. I viewed Silicon Valley with just kind of great interest and curiosity. And the idea to move fast and break things, like Mark Zuckerberg says, was intriguing. It was foreign. It sounded dangerous. And when rolling out products and platforms on Wall Street, I would always say, we're not dealing with monopoly money. In fact, one holiday, I sent everybody Monopoly board games instead of the usual Tower of Fruit and chocolates, and they just loved it. They still use them. But when I landed this job at the Wall Street Journal in Silicon Valley in San Francisco, I moved to the West Coast for my life without snow, closer to the grapes. I'm a big wine collector. I had this bird's eye view of Silicon Valley, which is the hub of technological innovation, and it really has changed the world. And there's not, anymore, there's not this huge group of engineers that you just have to be in, out here. But the area still supports this startup industry where entrepreneurs and investors mix and mingle. There's just a completely mindset, just completely different mindset out here. And we just dwell in possibility. And so being immersed in this ecosystem, I joined this angel investing group called Keiretsu Forum in 2016. I took some angel investing classes at Stanford, and I went in and started to mix and mingle. And I don't ever just put my toe in the water, I'd dive right in. So I met this guy, Matthew Morrow, and his wife, Allison Davis, working on some due diligence for a bunch of new companies. And Matthew started and really taught me how to evaluate early stage investments. And he and his wife are just, Allison, are part of Silicon Valley's, fabric. They, weave together ideas, connections. They're prolific investors. They provide guidance, appropriate guardrails. They sit on a lot of boards. But this experience for me put a spotlight on best practices for companies to succeed. And when you look at this book, and you'll get this digital copy, the critical insights from angels and venture capital folks in this book really kind of evolve around a few things. And for me, what I always say now is, after being out here for over 10 years, I think about daring to dream and dream big. If you're going to fail, do it with a bang. Embrace the power of diversity, do the work, focus on customers' real pain points, and expect bumps and failures, but learn from them and move on with tenacity and resilience. So my biggest takeaway is to have the courage and conviction to fix things. So I'm going to pause there. I have, please, link into me and reach out if you have any questions. But I know that there's a video we're going to play. And one of the things is, I don't want to sound like a whiny woman, but at the end of last year, I just had enough. And so put together this video, and it was
'Twas the night before fundraising, when all through the valley, not a VC
Sorry
was
about that,
stirring, not
Maryann.
even O'Malley. The deal room was
yeah,
buzzing
go ahead,
for
Maryann. I
data
wanna let
to
you finish.
explore in hopes an investment soon would be scored. The startup was nestled all snug in its lane while visions of runway
Did I
danced in
lose
its
video
veins.
audio?
And the CEO, a female founder entrepreneur,
had just settled
in for a long DD
Caroline,
tour.
I can hear it.
When out on the
I know,
horizon
but
there
I'm not
arose such a
playing it,
clatter,
so it's-
she sprang from her desk to see what's
I'm
the
going to
matter.
have everybody, if
While
we could all
Donna
mute
Can's
in the
TED
room.
Talk predicts
Helen, if you
prevention
don't mind, because I
questions
think
she'll
you're
be asked.
unmuted. If
She
you
hoped
could
that
mute,
male
that would be great,
pretenses
because I
would
think
be
that also
unmasked.
can create
While
a
investment
back
in women is pathetically
catch up
low,
of this. I'll
the
try
bucks
this
keep
again.
pouring
Let's
in for the white
just,
male bros.
I
And
will.
what to her wondering eyes came up next, but a small
I
allocation
just want
and
to
a
make sure
lady money
everybody can
check.
hear it, so I'm going to
With
stop
an
it in a
angel
second and
investor
ask
so
everybody.
lively and quick, she knew in a moment it must be a chick. She targeted investments led by women, but their feedback didn't lead to a funding decision. The angel recommended, play the VC bro game, and whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Andreessen, now Excel, now Pantera and Kleiner. On Intel, on NEA, on Sequoia and Forerunner. Jesse Draper wrote, investing in women isn't a fucking charity, but why oh why is there still such scarcity? Cindy Gallup says, build innovative
you hear me,
business
Maryann?
and fill market gaps, but women only seem
Yes.
to receive the scraps.
I think it's coming
And
in
then when
and
it
out for
seemed
me.
that
How
things
about
could not
everybody
get
else?
worse, the funding
coming
flew
in
into
and
what
out?
seemed like reverse. As she drew in her head and was turning
Okay,
around,
I'll just keep going.
Andreessen's single $350 million check hit with a bound. Newman, dressed in Made by We from head to foot, his clothes were untarnished by WeWork soot. A humongous investment in, again, a white male, yet another example of the Y chromosome trail. Adam, like SBF, their eyes how they twinkled, their manifestations how merry, their stories were like spells told by a fairy. Take FTX and all their deceit, money poured in and they just thought it sweet. Celebrity endorsements with shell games galore encouraged the FOMO and made folks want more. How much have they wasted? It surely confounds. No one asks, but the VCs, they just write it down. Women are half the population, but how do they represent? Investment in female-led firms is still less than 2%. Emily Chang has exposed this sham with her book Brotopia. Why oh why must we live with VC myopia? Nisa Amoyles wrote that women founders are fierce and on the rise. First Round says female returns are 63% better than the guys. VCs say send over a deck. It's a big game of ghost. Is it always like this from east to west coast? She spoke not a word and went straight to her work. She scoured the data and turned with a jerk. As women write more checks and make startups grow, giving a nod, up Crunchbase she rose. But I heard her exclaim without a trace of spite, "We will prevail." And to all, a good night.
Caroline, I put the link here in the chat if anybody wants to see that again. I just put this together and I made a conscious decision to have a male narrator. I don't want to come off as a whiny woman, never want that, but I am so fed up with this VC bro game.
That was awesome. I'd just like to, well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, just speaking for myself, I'm sure everybody else, wow. That's all I can say. Yeah, you pulled it out. That's for sure. Thanks, Maryann. I love it. Love it. I felt like you were talking about my days.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
I mean, we all watched that Apple thing on WeWork and watched Adam Newman's, crazy fall from grace. And I did not know he'd gotten another check for $350 million. That's shocking.
It was the single biggest VC check ever.
How do they keep failing upwards? It's insane.
It is insane. And there is a woman in the Boston area, her name is Allison Byers, Byers, who spoke out about it and immediately was slapped with a lawsuit or a threat of lawsuit by Adam Newman.
Not surprising. That's how these people work.
Yep.
And he's got the money to pay for the lawyers, so who's going to win in that game?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would love to, if we could take a minute, I'd love to ask you a couple of questions, Maryann.
All right, bring it on.
So clearly you have this insane fortitude, and I know many of the women in this room and in our community also kind of just have that incredible fortitude. But can you tell me a little bit more about what have you had to give up along the way? Because I'm sure you have. Love to hear it.
So this is primarily all I do. And by having me have singular focus, there's just a lot of things that have gone by the wayside. I've decided what's important and what's not important in my life. A lot of my friends have been confounded about the fact that I just don't have time for the drivel. And so the superficial relationships that I have are gone. I still have some very core relationships. I live with a great guy out here who has helped support me. And so that allows me to function, which is wonderful. However, it's tough not having the right funding. If I was a guy, we would have so much more funding. I'll give you an example. We were named a concrete solution by the Bank for International Settlement last year. That's a big deal. Of the 16 firms that were mentioned, 11 were named concrete solutions. So I did a little research on those other firms. No surprise, I'm the only female CEO, the only female founder. And the next one up on funding has raised over $60 million. So if you look at those statistics, I'm working at less than 10% of that. They were sold last year. Their platform has not been built, and they have not done any proofs of concepts. I've done 2 successful proofs of concepts. The second one was with State Street, a division of State Street Bank, which is a large institution, also with NatWest and CIBC. So if you look at that delta, that gap, I think about what could I have done? One, I could get paid myself. Funding, we've had to furlough a lot of people. I've stopped buying anything that was not essential. I'm kind of used to that, but I don't have a car anymore. Fortunately, I live close to SFO, and most of the time I'm flying more than actually, behind the wheel, but I've just stopped having a car. So everything that's non-essential has just gone.
Well, I think all of us here can also understand that space as well, and just even mentioning, things in your personal life, things that you are just having to really think very strategically about how can you invest your time. I think in our community and the XR industry as a whole, the industry is still really nascent, and a lot like blockchain, crypto, and maybe some of the iterations and the innovations that you have brought forward. And that has a lot of turbulence with it, as well as fear and doubt about adoption. I'd love to hear if you have any advice or any sort of reflection upon when you face that in the way that you have, because what you're doing is, I mean, to me, it's proof of the pudding. For God's sake, you're saving massive amounts of time for settlement. But can you give us a little bit of it, sort of a framework to think about if you faced that, and how did you deal with that?
Sure. So you asked a lot of questions. So I'm going to unpack that and give you a longer explanation on this and give you my journey on it. So when I first heard blockchain, it was in 2009. I was living in Boston, dressed in my black suit and pearls. I went to something that looked like a meetup, and I was the only female there. And everybody was talking about overthrowing monetary authority. And I said, yeah, that is never going to work. So I just flipped that in my rearview mirror. And I was on the back deck of Plug and Play, a large accelerator out here in Sunnyvale, California. And I was looking at a batch of fintechs, thinking that maybe I'd join one of them, maybe I'd help one of them. And as I watched all of these fintechs go through and do their pitch, one out of every 3 or 4 was using the word blockchain. And that was in 2016 or 17. I just don't get it. So I walked outside, had a glass of wine, and gravitated to a couple other of the people that looked like they were the adults in the room, and we were chatting. And one of them said, "Sit down, little girl. Let me explain how this works." And I'm still friends with this guy, John, he's responsible for my blockchain awakening, where he just explained it in a way that I understood. And I thought about immutability. I thought about single source of truth. I thought about, one ledger. If I could harness this correctly, I could eliminate breaks, reconciliation errors, and corrections. That just takes up so much operational time. I can make all that efficient by using blockchain. But I wanted to study it because I think many of you probably have the same reaction, is that unless you really understand it, you're not going to go out and talk about it. So I started studying every little piece of information that I could find on it. And then as I started to go from meetup to meetup, which there's one, every day here in the Valley, I realized that I was probably the expert in the room, or the expert in the room. And so people started to ask me to present and talk about it. And so I started to become more and more of the expert. And as I really moved this forward, I said, whoever's going to harness this is going to make a shit ton of money. And I want to be right at the front of that conga line. So I started to put this company together. I came out against ICOs. I wrote a paper called Pigs versus Hogs, which is still true today, about the Howey test. Some of the stuff that's going on with Gensler, if you ever want to talk about that, just ping me. I have a lot of stuff to say about whether a token is a security. And I predicted much of what's happening, what's going to go on with XRP or Ripple very shortly. That started on Jay Clayton's, the former SEC head's penultimate day in office. And I believe that is going to come down against Ripple. So there's a lot to be seen. But when I start to go out and talk about what I do, I'm not using cryptocurrencies in anything I do. However, people conflate it. Nobody ever talks about how TCP/IP works, but we use the internet every damn day, and still nobody asks about that. But they want to understand every little bit about how blockchain works. So I stopped using the word blockchain. I start to talk about cryptographic methods, and I use DLT instead of that. But when I entered banks in 2018, everybody was like, yeah, no, we're not talking about that. Now there is a rush to try to figure out how to put it together, but still in such early days. It is fascinating to be at the intersection of finance and technology and try to figure it out. Once we figure it out, then show use cases for it and then put it together. We are one of the only solutions that has figured out how to make this happen. I filed a lot of patents. The patents are being reviewed right now. So I'm waiting to hear if one of them is granted. I keep my fingers crossed. It all depends on the examiner and what they ate for breakfast sometimes. But we need to be at the forefront to show how it's done. So my advice to this group is to know the technology inside out, upside down. You just have to do that as a female. You have to know what you're talking about, because people will question you and question your authority. And then don't be afraid to stand in your power and talk about it. I'm on LinkedIn all the time talking about the fact that we don't need we can buy ourselves flowers. What we need is VC backing. And VC backing is going to change everything. And we need to have those checks written for women and to nudge every single person that we know that has the ability to be an angel investor to write the checks for women.
Yeah, that's right on the money. No pun intended. Can you also share, I know that you've talked a little bit about the accelerators and the different pathways that you've made attempts. There are many here in our community that are in the process of looking at alternative ways to raise money. And I know in the XR space, there's all kinds of things happening with partnering, larger companies that are funding certain initiatives. Can you speak to all the other ancillary ways, and are those things you're pursuing in terms of raising capital? And maybe for your specific products, there aren't as many, but can you give us any sense if you've had experience outside the accelerator incubator world, whether there are other things?
First of all, incubators and accelerators, do not ever give up equity in your company in order to get $100,000 credits. That is just hogwash. That whole system where you need to have an incubator or accelerator introduce you to somebody is just not appropriate. And I learned that early on. That's why I created Surge XLR, which we focused on working only with individually. We didn't do cohorts. I had this experience last week where company that was led by a female reached out to me multiple times, and finally I just decided to have the courtesy for a response. And when I did, the other people in the accelerator were just like, wow. And they didn't realize that I was on the chain. And I wrote right back, like, wow, like, why do you want me in this accelerator? What are you going to teach me that I don't already know? Are you going to teach me how to speak in front of people? I do that all the time. And I've presented in front of 30,000 people before. I have a speech coach, Silicon Valley Speaks. I don't need to have somebody explain to me how to do a pitch deck, but I do appreciate introductions to VCs. So that is the only reason why I would be part of some of those meetings or meetups. It's all about relationships and who do you know. So anytime that you can get into a room with a VC and be introduced, you have to be introduced, is what I've learned. It is something that I want. With regards to partnerships and corporate VCs, anytime that you can put something into action so that somebody can pay you for your technology or your platform, your product, your consulting services, that's where you need to follow. So follow the money that way and try to avail yourself of a corporate VC in that regards. That I 100% endorse.
Awesome. Well, that's amazing, Maryann. Thank you so much. I wanted to open it up just for a few minutes. We have a couple more minutes if people have questions in the audience. Anybody have any questions? There we go. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello?
All right. Anybody? Oh,
Oh, yeah,
sorry.
hi.
Go ahead. Go
Hi.
for it. Go for it, Juliana.
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering of that 2% that women receive, how many, what's the percentage that diverse women receive from that 2%?
It's so low, it's hard to explain. Black women receive like 0.3% of VC funding is a stat that I know. I don't have some of the stats on the others, but I know that they're out there. It's pathetically low.
Thank you.
Yeah, First Round Capital is the company that is a VC as well as an accelerator. They do these hilarious Christmas parody videos. So if you ever have an extra moment and you want to be entertained, they do these holiday parodies. But they did this study, and Nisa, in her book, Women Tech Founders, WTF is Happening, talks about it. And in 2017, I'm sorry, 2015, they did this study where they reviewed their own portfolio, discovered that companies with at least one female founder did a better job creating value, and that was 63% more ROI. That's the study that people talk about.
Insane. Anybody else have any questions? No? Well, I'm really, really thrilled that you could join us today. And we have a lot of the resources, and I do have, I can share the links. My computer was not cooperating with me earlier, and I had a list of them. So let me take a minute here, these few more minutes, and I'll throw them in the chat before that we take off. But thank you so much, Maryann, for coming here.
So pleased to be here, Caroline. And please
Yeah.
meet everybody. Please link into me. One of the other things that I wanted to say is that if you ever have a question, just ping me, especially about if you're creating a company and you want to know, should I do this? Should I not do this? The one thing that has saved my ass is to ensure that everybody in my company, including me, including the board, is on a 1-year cliff and 4-year vesting schedule. So I am persnickety about equity and how I allocate equity. And you should be keeping your equity as close to you as humanly possible.
Yeah, and that is such a big, deep topic. I know I went through that when we had arranged for our advising documents on these 2 startups that I advise, and then just being able to have the conversations also, Maryann, about standing your ground on that, because I think there's a lot of browbeating that happens when people are trying to talk you out of it, and leveraging that, well, do you really know, so all those lessons and tactics and strategies. That's awesome that you're offering that up. That's amazing, Maryann.
Yeah,
thank you.
Happy to answer questions on that anytime.
Fabulous.
And I
Well,
put my LinkedIn profile in there, so just link into me.
Awesome.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for presenting today. Do we have time for a photo with you on stage?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm standing up. Where should I go?
So we'll all come up and stand up with you. And if you want to pick the slide that you want behind you, right now it's the stiletto one. That's the one that I see. But if you want to,
I can switch it.
Yeah, to something, we'll put this into our social media.
I like that one though. We could just stay with it. It's pretty awesome.
Where should I
stand? In the middle, right about where is it, Karen? That's there.
Okay, am I looking direction?
We're going to take it from this. Jenna or Juliana, are you able to take it, or? for Daniel, I see is here too.
Sorry, can I help?
If not, I can do it.
I got it. I got it.
You got it? Okay. Thanks, Jenna.
Force. Another thing.
Slide that's one or two back. I know Caroline a lot from you.
Julie, I think that's you were the one echoing. Sorry.
I apologize.
What was the slide that you guys wanted?
That one's good.
This one? Okay. Hold on, this keeps, my computer is just dragging right now, so that's why everything is coming later. So let's see.
Maybe the one that says the embrace your seat at the table. Keep going.
Yep. Oh,
I think you went one.
I went on past. Everything is so slow. I don't know. The iLearn has not been performing for me today. Sorry.
Daniel's captured an image and he's dropped it in the chat. Thank you so much, Daniel. I appreciate that. It's great.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. I can't get that slide back to save my life. The presentation tool is not behaving.
You don't need to try, Caroline?
That would be
That would be
great.
great. Head onto the stage.
That one. Stop right there. Yeah. Excellent. Come on next to me, Gina. We've got coordinated hands.
Around.
The modified selfie.
Yeah. So the stage view. Looks great, ladies.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much, Maryann and Caroline. Have a great week, everyone. I have to jump to my next meeting. Thanks so much.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome
Yay.
presentation. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Bye, ladies.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Maryann. Thanks for
Bye.
everything.
Thanks, Maryann. That was amazing.
Mm-hmm.